What happens when your job is to coach and mentor people about moving forward in success, taking bold moves, making a big impact while not sacrificing their well being? And what happens when, while you are helping others gain this insight, you yourself start encountering issues? And what if the the people that we trust in the health industry to help diagnose us don't do it properly? Today, I am coming to you with a different kind of episode. Hi, everyone. I'm Katharine Loucaidou, and I am the host of Mindset Medicine Podcast. And this is a podcast for success strategies, for business strategies, business tips, mindset, changing your perspective, and also keeping our health in check. Because without our health, what do we have? What's left? Our health is what helps us to do and accomplish all these other things. This episode for me is deeply personal, and the reason I am willing to be vulnerable today with you is because if I wasn't, then I wouldn't be the person that I show you that I am, and I wouldn't be the person or the coach or the mentor who's doing their job properly. It has been years that I have been teaching people and mentoring people on how to achieve success without sacrificing their health. Because what I've noticed over the years is that there's a lot of hustle and there's a lot of grit and keep going and level up, which is great. I am one of those people. I have always hustled. For the majority of my life, I've had 2 and 3 jobs. So the question is, when teaching mindset along with success, we have to make sure that we aren't sacrificing the people around us, our relationships, and our health at the same time. So today, I am coming to you with a recent diagnosis, as recent as yesterday. And what that has really brought home for me, and what I hope that you will get out of today's episode, which is, are we sacrificing our health for success? And if you're a high achiever, what you need to know right now, the signals that you need to be looking out for. So many of you know that my story begins when I was, it begins when I moved abroad and I was in my mid-20s, my early 20s, and I moved to a country I had not lived before, a language I didn't know. I moved to the island of Cyprus, which is a Greek-speaking island. And although I had some relatives there, I never learned Greek as a child because my mother is Irish. So we spoke English at home. When I moved there, that's probably when my stress began. Learning a new language in a new country, vastly different, patriarchal society, not what I was quite used to. And immediately having 2 and 3 jobs, which when you're a young 22, 23 years old, you can do it. You've got the energy. But here is what I have really been thinking about this over the last 24 hours since I had this recent diagnosis. And I'm just going to take you through the whole journey, and I hope that it's something that you can learn from. When we start having these stressors early in our life, they don't really leave us. Childhood stress, traumatic stress, accidents, if you've had assaults, if you've had health crisis, if you had issues going on in your family, whatever you may have experienced throughout your childhood, into your teenage years, into your 20s, that doesn't really leave your body. And so the question is, have you been able to process that over the years, or have you pushed it down and it's been sitting in these areas of your body and just lying dormant, right? It's quiet. Nothing's really happened yet. You're fine. At 33, when I was going to bed and I had a massive heart attack, I mean, I had nothing wrong with me. I had no symptoms. I wasn't sick. My blood tests were fine. Where, out of nowhere, did I have a massive heart attack at the age of 33? Why would that happen? That notion that things can happen out of nowhere was very, very odd to me, especially at 33 with no history of heart disease in my family. So it ended up being that stress had created my massive heart attack. And then after, gosh, I don't know, 5 to 7 years of me researching. So here is what I had to do. From the day I was discharged from the hospital, I had a lot of recovery to do. I then had a minor stroke. So went back into the hospital. They gave me more medication. They just gave me medication because that's just what you do. And I used to say to them, are my blood tests bad? Does anything show? Is there a reason I have to be on all this? And they said, well, this is just the protocol. No, you don't have plaque in your arteries. No, you don't have high blood pressure, but we have to give you this anyway. And that never made sense to me. So what happens when you give someone medication that for symptoms that they don't have is it makes you sick. It creates symptoms that don't exist. The blood pressure medicine lowered my blood pressure when I didn't have high blood pressure, so it would make me faint. So then they would counteract that and give me another medicine to elevate my blood pressure. It was a joke. It was an actual joke. And it still makes me angry today when I think about the way that these doctors, and it wasn't one. I mean, I was stubborn enough that I kept moving forward, looking for the next one, looking for somebody help me understand to make sense of all this as to why I need all this medication when you can't prove to me that there's something wrong in my blood tests and that I was this 1% anomaly that this happened to. So I did, research around Cyprus, which was very limited because it's a smaller country. So when we decided to move back to Canada, and I know this sounds a little very long and drawn out, but I will get to my point with my most recent diagnosis, I promise. You're going to understand where I'm going with all this. So here is what I did. I decided that I was going to make it my mission to find out what exactly happened to me. Because just telling me I'm the 1% that this happened to didn't satisfy me. And I would say, well, will this reoccur? And they said, oh, yeah, probably in 5 years. Oh, great. So now I have this deadline that I'm racing towards. So by 38, you expect me to have another massive heart attack, maybe die. They told me that the triple bypass surgery would never hold up for longer than about 7 years because women's arteries are thinner. Oh, awesome. Okay, so not only am I to expect another massive heart attack, but I should also expect to have more open heart surgery. Okay, so now when I look back, the amount of stress, psychological, emotional, and physical that these diagnoses would have put on me and did put on me is huge. I want you to imagine what your life looks like when you've been told to expect another massive heart attack within 5 years, and to expect another open heart surgery in 5 to 7 years. But go ahead, go live life. Don't worry. It takes a really strong mindset. And that's what I had to work on first and foremost right away, because things didn't make sense to me. I was relying on doctors and surgeons who had been doing this for the most of their life. So, what do you do when you're trying to piece these things together with your health, but you also have three jobs to do? I was still teaching, I was still doing private lessons. And then I decided, well, if I'm on my second wind of life, then I'm going to go and I'm going to open a business because I always wanted to start something from scratch. So we designed and built a 5,000 square foot children's indoor playground, entertainment center, party center. It was amazing. It was thrilling. And it's probably what brought me out of my anxiety and my depression from all these ridiculous diagnoses that these doctors were giving me and all the medication that I was on. So it was wonderful. It was a distraction. It too had its stress because when you start a business from scratch in a country where they're not speaking your native language and the culture is different, even though I am half Greek, it was still different. And not to mention, now you're dealing with children in a party atmosphere, and kids will hurt themselves and, all of that. But the experience was incredible. And being able to sell that business, actually sell my own business and do the transaction myself, that was another level of ingenuity and business. And then the marketing of that business when there was no internet at that time. How do you market something that doesn't really exist in a country, right? Now you've got to get really creative. So I was able to do all of those things. So let's fast forward. So we moved back to Canada. I am still on a mission to find out why all these things happened to me. I managed to send an email to Dr. Oz's father-in-law. Yeah, believe it or not, he was a head cardiologist at a very, very famous, well reputable hospital in the US. And he actually wrote me back. I gave him my history. I sent him my blood tests. I said, please tell me, like, am I crazy? Do I really need to be on all this medication? And, I didn't hear back for 1 week, 2 weeks. And I thought, okay, well, I mean, I tried. I'm sitting here trying everything I can to figure out what on earth is going on. He actually responded. I think it was about a month later. I still have the email. And he said, I understand you are feeling frustrated. He said, unfortunately, I cannot comment on another doctor's diagnosis. However, what I can do is I can help you move forward. I would like you to read these two books. And I think it's important that you really take your diet into account when we are talking about heart disease. So I went ahead, I read these books. They were very fascinating. One was called The China Study. If any of you out there who are listening have an interest in heart disease, or maybe you have someone close to you, read The China Study. It's really interesting. And it's how the breakdown of the health system and people's good health in China started to break down as China became more westernized. So that's a really interesting study to read. It gave me a lot of perspective. And then I read more about different diets for health and heart disease and what really creates the disease, because I had been told over and over I had heart disease. And so I was trying to figure out, like, where's the disease? Because if it's not showing up in the blood tests, where is it? Is it hiding? So lo and behold, about 15 cardiologists and 7 hospitals later, I finally found an amazing doctor who was the head of cardiology at St. Michael's Hospital here in Toronto. He was doing this very small independent study on what was called SCAD, SCAD, and it is spontaneous combustion of the arteries. So, what had happened, now I'm starting to find my answers. What had happened was the artery, the major artery in my neck at the age of 33, spontaneously combusted and sent blood clots immediately throughout my body, which then blocked the entrance to my heart, which led to the massive heart attack. And it's interesting because when I was brushing my teeth that night, I heard a type of pop in my body. I can't explain it. But from the moment that I walked from my bathroom to my bed, however long that takes, what is that, like 8 seconds? In that 8 seconds is when all of this happened. So he explained to me that when the body is experiencing such extreme stress, whether it is external, whether it's internal, whether it's psychological, whether it's emotional. And at the time, I was experiencing a lot of stress. And he said, the body will create an environment that could possibly erupt an artery. And that's what happened. So he looked at me and he said, no, you don't have heart disease. You had an episode that happened that created these side effects that had to be surgically helped by open heart surgery, triple bypass, and so on. So you don't need to be taking all this medication. You're right. 7 years, I had been taking 15 kinds of medication. And finally, this man said, no, Katharine, you don't need to be taking it. What I need you to do, though, is I need you to continue doing what you're doing. At that point, after all the research I had done, I had decided that I was going to change out my diet. I was going to follow what I had read in all of these heart health books, which of course will make you healthy regardless. Regardless if you have heart disease, it will keep you healthy. You know, limiting meat, removing milk, dairy, milk, particularly cow's milk from your diet, all these different things, and exercise. I have exercised between 5 and 6 days a week for the last 18 years. Give or take some periods where I may have had COVID or I was sick or when I had my paralysis, which is a whole other story. But I have daily done that. So I know that I have been bringing my heart health back. About 2 years after meeting him, I had another angiogram. It showed all of my arteries were now open. All blood clots had been removed. My heart looks like it has never had a heart attack, which is a miracle in itself. So, super healthy. And I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing. Okay. So, now let me bring you to all of these efforts that I have been doing over the years have been helping. However, one thing that I never thought I needed to pay more attention to are the stressors that I hadn't learned to handle well enough yet. So even though I moved countries and even though got into a new industry, got my real estate license, so I was a professor in university. I went from teaching to real estate, getting my real estate license. Now I'm a salesperson who's really no longer given the respect that I had as a professor. That in itself took some time to get used to. Then learning all these new techniques, I have always pushed myself further and faster, as fast as I could. So first year in real estate, 17 years ago, I made $100,000 and I was the rookie of the year. And where did this person come from? She has no clients. How did she become rookie of the year? How did she make 100,000? I knew people. I was a professor of communication and I taught business. So I just brought my skills to real estate and I talked to people and I communicated with them. I just wanted to help them. How can I help you? And then I listened. And listening is such a huge part of sales and people. This journey of always reinventing myself is what has kept me alive. I know that for a fact. When you reinvent yourself, you challenge yourself, you give yourself, it's like you light a spark under you because now you are challenging yourself to move forward into the unknown, to do something new. And I've guided people to do the same. And all the while, I have never stopped taking care of myself. My diet has stayed. My exercise has not stopped. I have learned to deal very well with clients who are upset and able to calm people down. I would say 99.99999% of all my real estate transactions will pretty much go stress-free because I am able to communicate with people. So the same thing in my coaching. When I have a client who is feeling very emotional or they're very stressed, very, very easily and quickly, I can change their perspective and I can help them see things through a different light. And so they're able to relax, calm down, see things clearly, gain clarity, and move forward. So for the last couple of years, now we know that the pandemic happened and it was a very stressful time for everyone. During that period, I owned a brokerage, a real estate brokerage with 2 offices, lots of agents under me, and I had to go into overdrive, right? Make sure everything was going to keep running because even though agents may not be working, there are still bills to pay. So I went out and I sold a lot of houses because I had to. And this overcompensation and making sure that everything continues to run as it should puts a lot of stress on a person, physically, psychologically, emotionally, keeping everyone else's spirits up all the time so that they could be good for their families. And at the same time I was doing all this, I also decided to go to get a diploma from Cornell University for women in leadership because we were on lockdown. So even though I had to, suit up and wear the gloves and the mask and everything showing homes, all of my free time was spent getting this diploma from Cornell University. So over the last few years, I have been feeling this stress and fatigue, and I'm always a very energetic person. So where was this coming from? So I would go to my doctor and I'd say, I don't understand. I'm having these different symptoms. Oh no, you're fine. It's just stress from what's been going on. Yeah, you're fine. Okay. And then I would go back the following year and I would say, I still have this. It's unusual. Why do I have all these weird symptoms happening now? Am I in menopause? Nope, you're not in menopause. Okay, should we do some testing? Well, we did the normal blood test. Your cholesterol is excellent. Nothing to worry about. Okay. But when you know in your gut that something is off, you have to listen to it. Regardless of what anyone around you is saying, if you know something is off, it is your responsibility to yourself, to your family, to the gift of life that you've been given, to go and start asking questions, more questions. So this is what I did. I decided finally, after 4 years, I need other opinions because I just don't feel myself. Normally, I am very vibrant, lots of energy, waking up early in the morning, and I'm down there. And I found that even over the last 6 months, it has been a struggle. Like when I wake up in the morning, I almost feel like I haven't slept. I'm still tired. Sometimes I have nausea. Um, there constant bloating. I could drink a glass of water and I'll be bloated. Why? What is going on? I can't be okay, even though the doctors tell me I am. So that stubbornness that I had during when I was trying to figure out my health heart issues, I've now brought forward. So hired a naturopath. And I found a natural path for hormones and functional medicine, the way the body functions, because that's what I determined. I need to understand why my body is functioning differently now than it was a few years ago. Let me give you a little bit of research though, because I always want to make sure that these aren't just my opinions and my observations of the world, but there is actual research that supports me. So the shortcomings of traditional medicine. I don't want to come across as just being someone who is ranting because traditional medicine has a huge part, plays a huge role in our lives. We need traditional medicine for many different things, but sometimes they're not very open minded, which is where I think that the patient, yourself, myself, we need to ask more questions. So there is a shortcoming in traditional medicine when it comes to diagnosing and treating stress. Because stress is it's this word that covers so much in life, right? Is it an external stressor? Is it internal? Is it physiological? Is it psychological? Is it emotional? It's too much for a traditional doctor to sit down and start diagnosing each part of that. So, what conventional traditional medicine will do are quick fixes just on the symptoms that you're feeling. So, oh, you have a skin rash. Well, let's just give you a cream, right? Let's put a band-aid on that. You're feeling sleepy. Okay, stop. Don't drink caffeine because maybe that's why you're not sleeping at night. Or, oh, you're waking up in the middle of the night. Oh, well, just don't drink water before you go to bed. So what's interesting about functional medicine is that it wants to go to the root of what's wrong, right? It's not about putting a band-aid. It's about really digging deep, which is what I had to do when I had my heart issues and what I started doing again this time. So, research published in the Journal of Women's Health found that women seeking treatment for hormonal imbalances are often given generalized symptomatic treatments like hormone creams, birth control, without thorough testing. The complexity of women's health, especially hormones, is often oversimplified in traditional medicine, which leads to inadequate treatments. So, I'll give you another little story. A few years back, I was having a lot of skin irritation. And I asked my doctor to refer me to a dermatologist. That's how it's done here in Canada. We have to be referred to a specialist. So I went to see this specialist. He has me sit on the chair, does not ask to see any of my skin irritation. And he says to me, it's likely in your head or you're being hormonal. Here, take this cream. I left that office so angry because I could not believe that not only had this doctor diagnosed me without even looking at the skin irritation, but he was telling me It's because I'm hormonal. Well, that's a very general statement. So here we are, 4 years later, out of frustration, I have sought a naturopathic doctor. And she sat down the very first time we spoke, and we had our first appointment was over Zoom, over an hour long. She said, "Tell me everything that you've been feeling." So I'm listing one after another. I don't care if I'm boring her, but I'm giving her all of the symptoms that I'm feeling. And I said, "Please don't tell me that I'm just being a crazy woman here." She said, "That's not why I'm here. I'm here to help you find out why these are happening." So she said, "Here's what we're going to do. There are many tests that you could do, many general tests that your doctors do, and they will tell you the usual, your cholesterol, your thyroid, all of these things. I actually want to go many levels deeper. We are going to do more specific testing. It's going to cost you money. And we're going to do a very highly specific test called the Dutch test. And the Dutch test is looking for hormonal imbalances, male or female, that could be causing dysfunction in the body. Because let's think about this for a minute. Your hormones are actually regulating your body. So to call me a hormonal woman, well, that is what I am. And so are men. Men just have different hormones than we do. So I did these tests. One of them had to be sent to the US. It took 3 weeks to get all of my tests back, which all came back yesterday. So here is what's so fascinating. When you have a dysfunction in your body, the functionality of your body will stop working properly. And if you leave it long enough, you will cause serious damage to your organs, to your brain, and to your heart. So one thing that I actually found quite, it's not funny, but it's like, what, are you kidding me? My estrogen levels are so high that my body thinks I'm pregnant. And how did that happen? Well, I'm going to get to the core of this, and all of it is stress related, chronic stress that has been going on probably for the last 20 years or more. So, because our bodies do not actually understand if I'm pregnant or not, right? They don't see a belly. The body just works on the levels of your hormones. So, because the estrogen levels in my body are so high, my body started adding weight to itself because it thinks that there is a baby, which means it needs to feed off of my hormones. And so the body starts adding fat and weight. So even though I've been eating these unbelievably clean diets, no soda, I barely drink alcohol, I drink a half cup of coffee a day. I mean, it's crazy if you were to see how clean and good I eat in the portions. Why on earth do I not weigh like 100 pounds? Right? What's going on? And this has been really frustrating me. And I'm sure for any of you listening, especially if you're a woman, if you are having trouble losing weight, but you know to your core that you are doing everything that you're supposed to, it's a hormonal imbalance in your body. So here is what I found out is that every hormone in my body at the moment is not where it should be. And my adrenals are fatigued, meaning they are not working as they should, which if I had left it any longer, I would either be suffering another heart attack. There is stress in the brain, which causes brain fog, which could cause other symptoms later on. There is stress in my body, which causes skin irritation. It causes a constriction of the blood vessels, which is not good, as we know, for the heart. So I'm going to give you a little more insight as I started digging into all of this yesterday after my phone call with her. And I do hope that if you are still listening to me today, some of this information will be able to help you and understand any symptoms that you haven't been able to understand, or some kind of feeling that you just haven't felt quite right, quite yourself. So, according to a study in the Integrative Medical Journal, and I'd like you to start thinking about this word, functional medicine, integrative medicine, because this is the type of medicine that actually gets to the core or the root of something that you may have going on. So, according to the study in the Integrative Medicine Journal, naturopathy and functional medicine often provide a more comprehensive approach to chronic conditions like adrenal fatigue. And do you know what the most common trendy word for adrenal fatigue is these days? It's burnout. But the medical term is adrenal fatigue because your adrenals, which are helping your body to function, are dysfunctioning. So practitioners rely on detailed lab testing, which is what I did, to uncover the root causes of symptoms that are often ignored by traditional medicine, which exactly was my case. So let's dive deeper into what's actually happening. So chronic stress, which is what I have been diagnosed with, is not just psychological, it is physical. It affects every part of your body, believe it or not, like every part of your body. And the body, so my body right now thinks I am in a constant survival mode. It thinks that I am at war. It thinks that I'm constantly being chased by a predator, and it never calms down. What's fascinating is when you stop to think about this, and if I were to rewind and go all the way back to when all of this started, it would have started in my early 20s. And it's probably been building and building. We know that my massive heart attack came from extreme stress. And yet, 18 years later, here I am, still in a highly stressed chronic state. So your adrenal glands pump out cortisol. Your blood sugar fluctuates, and eventually the flood of stress hormones puts your body into overdrive. Burnout happens when your body's stress response stays on for too long. So I have been unable to turn my body's stress function to off mode. Now, I'm sure I have done it when I've been on vacation, when I've felt completely at ease. But unfortunately, because of the industries that I have worked in, we're never left alone. There's always someone who does not care if you're on vacation, who's going to want something from you. So there's never a complete relaxation. So, it's very interesting when you have to start thinking this through and you say to yourself, well, life has stress, right? I mean, you're not going to get away from it. So the question is, how can you deal with it? Well, let me give you a few more items that add to chronic stress in your body. So if you have felt any strange symptoms that you may not have had before, let me tell you some other things that may be playing a role for you. Did you know that your diet can actually be a stressor? So when we eat foods that spike our blood sugar, So actual sugars, refined foods, um, artificially refined foods, white flour, processed foods, takeaway, like fast food takeaways, all of these things, processed carbs and sugars. Our adrenal glands have to work overtime to balance the glycemic load that is currently sitting in our body. So I know for myself, that hasn't been my issue, but possibly constantly trying to find a diet that works for me would have been my issue, right? Why can't I lose weight? This has been plaguing me for years. What I didn't know and what no doctor would help me with was to do the actual hormone testing to see exactly what was going on. Now I understand. A study in the American Journal of Medicine showed that long-term exposure to high-stress environments can lead to chronic fatigue, a weakened immune system, and increased cardiovascular risks. The study emphasizes that stress does not just affect the mind, it impacts every major system in your body, from your digestive system. So if you've had gut issues, like I had the bloating all the time, even from a glass of water, to a hormonal imbalance. Another key factor, and the adrenals is actually one of the most important parts of your body that you need to regulate. So we are going to talk a little bit about this now. So one of the key factors in adrenal dysfunction and chronic stress is the disruption of your body's biological clock. Our bodies, believe it or not, thrive on routine. They need it, they crave it. So, having a very routine sleep pattern is what actually will help you sleep better. Eating at the same times will help your body perform better. Exercising, finding that optimal time that works for you and your body is key, and to stick to it. This biological clock, or circadian rhythm, as it's called, regulates everything in your body from your hormone production to your metabolism. And when we are living in a constant state of stress, we are always on the go. And we know that, right? That hustle culture. So, why do women show more symptoms of this than men do? Typically, it's because we have taken on more on our plate. It is from the caveman era or before, because women are the ones having babies, nurturing babies, always their eye and their ears are always on alert, right? That doesn't go away. So we've had that innately in us from the beginning. Back when our biology was originally created by our ancestors, they did not live in a hustle culture like we do today. They each had their roles, they did their roles, they were able to enjoy company of others, right? Sitting around the fire. They were able to do all of things. Yes, they did what they had to do, whether they were gathering their berries or hunting and whatever. But apart from that, their existence wasn't a hustle. So we have to work harder and longer now just to keep up. And in just the last few years, because of the economies and the way they're performing, we have to work even harder. Today's world is far more challenging than it was. We have a lot of external pressure. The economies are not stable for the most part. We've seen a lot of fluctuation going on, whether it's elections, the pandemic, uh, economic breakdown, banking breakdown. We've seen everything over the last few years. And so We have this constant worry, right, about the unknown of our future. And we don't know who to trust. We find a lot of people are more cynical. All of that weighs on our bodies. It weighs on our minds. It weighs on our emotions. And even though we may feel as though we are coping really well with all of these stressors in our lives, we're not. And that's what I've realized, that I may be very competent to teach success strategies and business tips and business strategies and moving forward, leveling up, and also talking to you about your mindset and your perspective. But what we don't always realize is that if we are always on, if we are always on the go, if we are always performing our job or whatever it is that we need to be doing on a daily basis and never taking the time to step back, remove all of it, and just detox, then what happens is your hormones, your hormone receptors, your adrenal function goes into overdrive because we're unable to put the button to off. So stress goes into overdrive. So how do we fix this? I have done a deep dive and I had a very long conversation with the naturopath. How do I fix this? I have a good diet and so on. So, what I've learned is when we have hormonal imbalance, whether you're a man or a woman, what we need to do, first of all, is to get that back into balance. And we can do that through food, right? So, a lot of greens. So, whether it's kale or spinach, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, all of these vegetables, there's actually a reason why our body needs them. They actually help detox. Water. Water helps push all of these hormones, either helping to regulate them or pushing the toxins out of the body. Also very important. Removing the stressors in our foods like sugar, processed carbs, white flour, excessive caffeine, and alcohol. So we know these things, right? We know we shouldn't be having them. But I think so many people are associating those foods with the general term bad health, gaining weight, gaining fat. But what we haven't done is we haven't thought about the functioning of our body and what these foods do to the functioning of our body. And what they're doing is they're actually creating a poisonous, toxic atmosphere within our body, which is why things start to deregulate. Routine is very important. So, sleep is actually one of the biggest regulators of your hormones. So, getting enough sleep, staying asleep all night. Do you have a problem falling asleep because you're overthinking? If you have that issue, it's really important that you get those thoughts out of your head before you go to bed. So, that is the reason why people have asked people to write journals. When I have my clients and I can see that they are in distress about issues, I don't tell them to write in a journal for the sake of journaling. The reason you do it is to get it out of your head. Myself, I don't want to go to bed thinking about what I have to do tomorrow. So I have a reminder app on my phone and I put everything, I literally take everything out of my head, put it in the reminder app so that I don't have to think about it anymore. Um, Now, staying asleep actually has to do with the food and what you have drunk, probably for the last 6 to 8 hours before you went to bed. So it's really important that you check on that as well. Alcohol will disrupt your sleep. Sugar, so eating a dessert, will disrupt your sleep. Things like bananas that have potassium will actually help you sleep. Having almonds will help you sleep. Greek yogurt. These will actually help in your digestive system and help the functioning of the body while you sleep. Moderate cardio and resistance training that doesn't push your body too hard. Now, I'm not talking about if everything is functioning normally. I'm talking about if you feel as though you are in a stressful state, exercise is highly important for you because it will help regulate your cortisol levels. However, overdoing it will cause the opposite effect. So it's finding that happy medium that works for your body where you don't feel exhausted after it, but you're also not putting it to the side because it's really important that you get in exercise every day for your heart, for your hormones, for your cortisol levels, for your adrenals, for everything. Finally, we have the trigger toolkit. So we have to become very self-aware. Because I am so self-aware, I knew that there was something wrong that was off in my body from how I know I normally function. When I wasn't finding the answers, it was up to me to look elsewhere for the answers because I know they're out there in this day and age. I just had to find someone willing with the knowledge, with the experience to help me figure it out. And did it cost me $925? It did to get all of that testing done. But guess what? Now I can work on repairing my body. Now I can work on removing the chronic stress that I've been in so that I can keep going another 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I plan on living in a very beautiful place that's tropical and will just enjoy life in a very short time from now. Nothing is going to stop me from doing that. So it's up to me to stay healthy for my family, for my businesses, but to also know that I have to have joy in my life. And we all do. And that's why I come back to, the topic of this episode and the title of this episode is we cannot sacrifice our health for success. You cannot sacrifice joy for success. They're very important. So, how do we avoid being triggered? It's not about avoidance. It's about dealing with the triggers, understanding what they are, and then learning to having a tool to counteract the trigger. So if you're in a situation where someone is speaking to you very rudely, they're shouting at you, they're angry, it is up to you to control your reaction to that. You can start to become highly emotional and defensive, or you can say, you know what? This really doesn't have much to do with me. They're angry, not because of anything I've done. So that's where you can go. And now you go and find your happy place. Is it a bath? Is it going for a walk? Is it listening to a book? Is it listening to music? Is it swimming? Maybe it's just going out with friends, having a great laugh. Maybe it's going out with your spouse and just relaxing and saying, we're not talking about work. We're not talking about people. People are exhausting. Let's just talk about something else. You need to figure out what your trigger tools are, and you need to fill that toolbox of yours with joy. Find things that bring you joy and start inserting them into your life every single day. Go for a walk. You need to de-stress by listening to something, watching something, just do it. Lazy is binge watching Netflix instead of working. But If it's just to calm the mind, it is to calm the stressors that are currently happening, then that's what you need to do 30 minutes, 45 minutes, short periods of time until you can regulate your body again. Finally, something that I am now going to be starting, other than changing slight variations in my food, I am going to be start taking quite a few supplements, and I haven't taken supplements in years. So there are adaptogens, they're called, that even astronauts have been taking for years when they go up into space because they need to remain resilient when they're up there, right? They're going to get anxiety. They're going to have stress. Things aren't going to go right. You're in the middle of space. What are you going to do? They too take adaptogens. So they are typically in a holistic form. They are typically plant-based. I am going to start using maca. And my understanding, this is like I said, you're coming along on this journey with me. So I'm going to be putting maca into smoothies. You can put it into yogurt, is my understanding. And it has been shown to support hormonal balance and reduce stress. There are other adaptogens like ashwagandha, which is derived from India, which helps your body to moderate its cortisol levels and its stress levels. So instead of being constantly in a fight or flight mode, it will help you to find people less stressful, less annoying, less irritating, because you are more able to handle it. It's almost like you are giving a protective layer to your nervous system. And who doesn't want that, honestly? So there you have it. It is a more vulnerable episode than I would normally do, but I do it in the hopes that, did you gain anything out of this today? Have you felt any of these symptoms or side effects that I've been talking about? Have you been frustrated with medical doctors and maybe they're brushing you off and you can't really get the answers that you've been looking for? I've been there. And that is why I say, as a coach and a mentor to high achieving people, I have likely been where you are. And here I am back again with chronic stress, which I will get under control. I told the naturopath by December, our next appointment, it will be under control because I will start implementing all of the things. Once you know where the issue lies, that's the beginning of better, the beginning of better health, better life, more joy. Because if you aren't feeling well, it affects everything. So we've talked about my journey from way back right up until recently. I would love it if you could put a comment below. Let me know, has this episode resonated with you? Let me know if there's anything that you heard in today's episode that surprised you, that you learned that you didn't know before. Please let me know. I would love to know if somehow this helped you. And if you need help in moving on with your next chapter, your next bold move, making an impact, I am here to help you do it. And we're going to do it without sacrificing your health. Because really, that's why we're here, to enjoy life, not to be sick. Thank you all for joining me. And if you want to learn a little bit more, I've just revamped my website. So head over to katharineloucaidoucoaching.com. It looks fabulous. And, there's free quizzes, there's courses, there's my blog. You'll find these mindset medicine episodes on there. It's full of goodness. So head on over there. And if you'd like to book a call with me, a discovery call to see how can Katharine actually help me move from where I am to where I really want to be, book a call with me today, and we'll have a short call and we'll see if we're a good fit to work together. Bye for now. Thanks for hanging out with me today on Mindset Medicine. Remember, every step you take toward building a resilient mindset and creating harmony in your life will get you closer to your dreams and that transformation that you've been looking for. If today's episode hit home for you, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback is our fuel. Spread the love. Share this podcast with friends and family. Tag me on Instagram at Katharine Loucaidou Coaching. And if you're looking for more tips and resources, head over to KatharineLoucaidouCoaching.com. Stay connected, stay inspired, and keep living your very best life with harmony and purpose. And until next time, my friends, live boldly with purpose.